Yeah, it's pretty good. So, it's rolling, just to let you know. But yeah. So it's been about a month or two since we last talked.
Been a while.
Yeah, and I have to say that I think I've been procrastinating.
Go figure.
And I think that's a little bit of something I want to talk about later. And I don't know how to explain it really. Sometimes I lose words because words don't really, I think, express the right amount of feeling. Procrastinating because it's not an easy topic. It's not, and I just have a story I want to talk about later about that just recently happening. Families not wanting to talk about it, or even the question of working on a 22 wall project. One of the questions is when people go to see these people online that we want to honor and talk about, the question comes up: do we really want how they committed suicide, or the details of the suicide even posted? So, anyways, that's a little bit of something I want to talk about today. But let's talk about the new bench that you have.
This one is really important to me. If you notice the pictures, Joshua, U.S. Army chaplain, he was deployed in 2011, and we sent him a lot of care packs. And me back then, it was all fun and games. We're sending these guys care packs. We're serving them. And then to get the news in 2014, after he came home, he was still in the Army, that he took his own life at Fort Riley, and then getting the news later on that year that his assistant Michael did the same thing. So both of them, inside calendar year 2014, took their own lives. And so for me, that was my introduction to PTSD. I didn't know what it was. I knew the chaplain was struggling, just from some communication with him. But now I know a lot more, obviously. You and I have talked a lot about it. I talked a lot about it with Russell, and all of my vets, guys that call me, I know a little bit more about the struggle. And it's so, I know both families. I actually know the chaplain's mom and dad fairly well. And I'm going to, when I deliver 2 benches soon, I'm going to show them this bench that they gave me the approval to build for us. So we can take this wherever we go. We can stop on the road and show people how real this is. And it's happened up here too. It's nationwide. It's a big problem. And it's something nobody really talks about, I don't think. And one thing I know about the families, they don't want their loved ones forgotten. They don't necessarily need the details broadcast, but they don't want their loved ones forgotten. And when you show up with something like this that's totally custom, that they approve of, and it's made for their loved one, and you deliver it in person, and you bring veterans with you, no matter where you're at. Veterans will go with us, no matter where we're at. And so it impacts the family. It also impacts the people with us. And it also raises awareness for what's happening. And it's terrible what's happening, with the military suicide. Suicide's a big deal across the board, but military is it's really epidemic proportions. It's just not talked about.
So this bench is kind of the beginning of your mission. Would you say that?
I think it's the beginning of a transition, because I went to the assistant's funeral and met the chaplain's mom and dad there. Joshua's mother had never seen that picture right there with him with the guitar that we mailed him. I gave her one of those pictures and some pictures that he had sent me when he was deployed that she never saw. And that's how you connect with families. You do something personal, you share the grief with them, you sit and listen with them. This bench means a lot to us because we're definitely in a transition stage. We're going to still ship the care packs, and we're going to support the group in Brentwood that's shipping care packs. But we are going to focus on these families that are so hurting.
Yeah, that's part of the question you had, going back to something you said earlier. It's not talked about. And it's a problem, obviously, but just like many things that we face that are struggling or difficult, sometimes we as humans have a tendency maybe to, we recognize it, maybe we might think about it, but we don't know how to address it, how to, in a good way, feel like we're making an impact in an issue. And the issue's so disturbing in some aspects, it makes it easier for us to ignore. It makes it easier for us to just avoid, because it's difficult. That's kind of how I opened up, this procrastination. My procrastination of just trying to avoid maybe this conversation, just talking about suicide or talking about these loved ones. How can we talk about this? How can we discuss this without feeling so hurt? I think is a question. I think it's hard to answer. What are your thoughts?
As difficult as it all is, it's necessary. And even the last time you and I talked, I felt your pain, because you've served with guys that took their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
You have your struggles. You look great on the outside. And it's funny you talk about procrastination. It's not funny, you talk about procrastination. I think about don't get sidetracked. We're at my church up in Solbeagle right now, and that was the message yesterday. Don't get sidetracked. So when God puts something like this on your heart, do it with all your energy. We've got 2 benches, we're almost ready to go to Houston, Texas area, and really got to get that done, because this is the mission season for me all the way to November pretty much, when I can travel safely. So we got to go out there, we got to meet these families, we got to do the difficult things. I wouldn't trade this for anything. God has given me the ability. I'm that guy that can drive 1,000 miles a day without any problem. I don't know why, but God has given me the ability to do this and to be focused, and so we have to. It definitely is difficult. We need people to help the VA with this problem. Mighty Oaks down in Paso Robles, I think they're also in Texas, they're doing a lot of stuff for vets with PTSD. There's groups that actually are doing the work to help, but these families of the 22, they're always going to be hurting. So if it's for me, if it's for Joe and Carol that are doing the same thing I am on the East Coast, if that's our mission, and other people are going to come alongside, we need to do it. Definitely difficult, but it's definitely necessary, if that makes any sense at all.
Oh yeah. I was thinking earlier today, this morning, contemplating our relationship, and I see, I feel like, because I'm a veteran and combative veteran, in my experiences with working with veteran services, I feel like I'm on the front line. Being on the front line, there's certain things that are difficult for me, like just thinking about you visiting these families and talking about these loved ones and seeing these poor families' faces, and feeling their emotions. That would be very difficult for me to do. So I think of you as you're on the, behind the lines, not behind the lines in a negative sense. Like in the military, we kind of joke on each other, oh, you didn't go to the front lines, but we couldn't be in the front lines if it wasn't for the back line, So even though you don't have that military experience, you have the experience of that back line that I don't have. And I think there's many veterans like myself that thank you so much for the work that you're doing, because it'd be difficult for me to do. And I completely agree with you. It's something that we need to address, need to do. And this goes back to whether it's a lot of fraternities say we need to take care of widows and orphans. That's usually fundamental in most fraternities. I don't think there's an age limit on being a child or a parent. And so when someone leaves or makes this choice to make this decision, suicide or however you want to address it, there's still people left behind that are hurting. They got a lot of questions. It's usually a time where we'll question our religion, our faith, and that's pivotal in what you're accomplishing as well, is making sure that God's in the presence of this situation.
It's all about kindness. One of the moms, Brady Hammer, from Klamath Falls, Oregon. His picture has traveled with me like 7 times across the nation on my vehicle, and every time I go up that direction. I'll go do something or help Marie with a project. See, that the bench gets you right in with the family. Once you actually deliver something like this, they know that you're for real. They know that you're not just showing up for the photo op. Because most of the time there's no press. You know, if the family wants press, that's up to them. I'm not interested in the press. I am interested in veterans from the local community going with us, because they get to feel some of the healing too. You know, they've lost guys, whether it be battle or military suicide. They've lost, you know, comrades, and it's important to show the kindness. And then, you know, when you spend time with family, usually after about an hour and a half, they're in better shape. They're starting to talk about their loved one and share stories. It's really, I think it's helpful. You know, I definitely would want to be doing this if we were hurting the families, but it's done in kindness, you know. And I'll stay as long as is necessary. We don't just show up and we're going to go deliver a bench in 30 minutes somewhere else. I mean, we make it a point. That's why we deliver in person. You know,
You had a lot of good points there, but I think the most important thing to talk about is that after spending time with them, they begin to talk about their loved one. They begin to talk about the situation, because I can see it in my marriage. After 20 years of marriage, I got a little experience. Sometimes when you're with your loved one, there's certain things you don't want to talk about, certain problems you don't want to talk about. Obviously, this is not necessarily, I don't want to call it a problem, but a tragedy that has happened, and that's got to be that much more traumatic. And I can just see a mother and father sitting there not saying anything, and they got these built up questions or just things they just want to get off their chest, and I don't know how to do that. It's easy to say, hey, go to a therapist, but that therapist is not bought into their lives completely. It's friends and family that are bought into your happiness and your success, and actually feel some of that little pain. If it's not a lot, maybe just a little, it's all about the feeling that's undescribable of these situations.
You know, it's one of those things with the families. You need time. If you spend some time, you know, like we go visit. Like, I'll visit families. Some families I've seen 5 or 6 times, and actually done some projects for them and helped them with things. And when you spend time with people, you'll find out what kind of things that you could possibly easily do that would help them tremendously. And that's huge. You know, there's one right now in Arkansas. It's a mom that she lost her Marine Corps son to suicide, and a year and a half before he took his own life, his wife died. So there's a 10-year-old kid in Arkansas being raised by the grandparents, because both parents died inside of 2 years. So if and when we meet them and deliver a bench to that family, we have resources in Arkansas. I have a Marine and an Army veteran in Arkansas close by to this family. If we can get them connected with that kid, no telling what might happen, for, you know, in a good way. You know, so that's what happens. You meet the family, you find out the needs, and you see if there's a way you can get local people to help you with some of those needs. Because they're hurting. It's a tremendous loss, losing a loved one, you know, like by suicide.
Definitely, that's, I mean, the most important things about community. It's just not family and friends, it's the community. Being involved. Most veterans organizations have auxiliaries where families can join and still have that connection, and that's the most important thing. And that's what you're talking about here, is to see a connection.
Let me fix that real quick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Be all right. I'm gonna fix this. Little wind.
We have the right behind us. We have a poster of all the servicemen that passed away. They're in the exit of Afghanistan. Keep hearing the trailer. I mean, might as well just transition into a little bit of something I wanted to discuss, and it ties into what you're just talking about. Is recently I did an honor guard for the family of Samuel Faustich. Hope I'm saying that right. And this is for me, I have a bad memory, but about a year or more ago that you invited me to a funeral for Samuel's daughter that passed away. And when I was in the in the loop of doing this funeral, I didn't connect the two because I didn't know Samuel very well. I just met him that one time. I went to his funeral, his daughter's funeral, and that was a pretty difficult day for me. I mean, I had a lot of things on my mind lately, but that day was just a difficult day. But then to do the funeral, and there's a part of the funeral without the back knowledge of knowing that this gentleman his daughter had passed away, and I had actually gone to his funeral. I come to this funeral with kind of a blank mindset of like, I have this another funeral. I've done 1,000 of them before. You got a job to do, and you kind of turn it off emotionally, and something that a lot of veterans do all the time, which is not good or bad, but for the situation, you need to do that. And right before, we knew we were going to be folding the flag. We had a plaque that Horses and Warriors had done for him that we were unveiling for the family. We had practiced doing the flag folding because that flag goes to the next of kin. And in that particular day, as soon as the family comes over, we ask whoever's in charge, like, where's the mother, the wife, the father, and where's the flag going to? And they told us the mother, and points the mother out. But then another gentleman comes up to me in the group and says, hey, this flag is for his daughter. So immediately, part of our plan when we were handing out 2 flags is obviously we only fold one. We give that to the family member that's receiving it, and as that flag is given to that family member, the second flag or the third will be handed at the same time to whoever their representative families are supposed to go to. So Jill Main, our female vet, she has great class A's. She's very good at this. We usually have her do it, and if it ain't her, it's usually me or Chris. So, when we got 2 flags, I step up to hand out the second flag, and as she's leaning down to hand the flag to her mother and recite what a grateful nation that this flag represents, I'm handing the flag to his little daughter, and that is a special moment. It was an odd moment for me because I'm paying attention to how the daughter's reacting. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, and she didn't understand what was going on. I could clearly see, like, I'm not sure if she understands that she's even at a funeral for her father. That night, it was really difficult for me. I cried for hours. I didn't exactly know why. It was just an emotional day, obviously, dealing with a funeral, dealing with my own family issues and stuff. And then come Monday, I was speaking with somebody in the community that knew the mother, and I didn't really know what had happened to Samuel. I read in the paper, his obituary, and up to that point, only what people had told me, and I got the impression that there was cancer involved, sickness. But in this conversation with this person in the community that knew the mother, there's an indication that there was suicide involved. And now I say indication that there's suicide involved. I don't know how that conversation went with that community member and that mother. And I did check his Facebook today before coming, and one of his last posts was he did mention cancer, but he wasn't eating. And so to me, I've got this feeling that, okay, this is a type of suicide. This is a suicidal situation. And then more backstory. His daughter passed away that we went to, the funeral we went to, and then when he separated from his wife, I'm not sure what they're separated before or even now, that wife took the daughter to Hawaii. So Samuel kind of lost 2 daughters. He lost his daughter to actual death and his other daughter through custody. And then the gentleman gets cancer and he kind of gives up. I mean, ultimately that's what suicide is. There's a point of giving up, and I don't necessarily say that as cowardice, because I believe we all have a breaking point. I don't know what your comments on that whole story I just felt. But,
It's hard because by the time I put 2 and 2 together, the name, and the fact that we were at the funeral for the daughter, you and I and Brandon, I remember Brandon was with us, and we talked with Sam. And that was my only contact with Sam. There are times when I can connect really well with some of you guys that are quite a bit younger than me. There are times when I don't connect well. And so we didn't know that he was struggling, right? So this has been a couple of years probably. I didn't know Sam was struggling. I didn't even know Sam was still in the same area. So you think about all that, and it's like, man, then you want to blame yourself, and that's no good either. You know, it's all, the whole thing is terrible. Ideally, somebody might have known he was struggling and got him some help. Most of the time, people close to somebody struggling like this have no clue what's coming. Absolutely no clue. I talked to a lot of families. Some of them are like, they didn't know anything was wrong. Others are, we don't know why he wasn't talking to anybody, he wasn't going, you know, to do stuff with people. You know, there's just so much that we're not equipped. You know, we need to be tuned in to what's happening. And then if and when it does happen, you know, we really have to come alongside the families, because they're just floored. You know, they are just totally floored when this happens. And think about, you know, these kids, they don't sign up for any of this. You know, the 10-year-old in Arkansas lost both parents in less than 2 years. And he's got grandparents raising him. You know, hopefully the grandparents will do well, but they're old, and they're raising a 10-year-old. There's so much going on. So it goes back to community, whether it's veteran community, nonprofit community, church community. You know, we are supposed to help each other. We are supposed to do that. And that says so in the Bible. We are supposed to help each other. You know, so that's where it goes to me. You know, we're sitting at my church in Soulsbyville, and the experiences I get here, the teaching, the worship, the fellowship, the things I get to do here equip me to go and hold it together when I meet with a family. I could drive down the road by myself later crying like a baby, if that's the case. But man, we got to go and visit these families and tell them that we care about their lives.
So I have a project I've been working on this since 2017. I wanted to do a type of virtual wall, and it's going to be 22wall.org. Should be rolled out in about a month or so. And the idea behind the wall is about 4 points. One, it's honoring the memory and history of our dead, because of suicide, and that's like I said earlier. There's an open. I think there's so many different ways to commit suicide. So, like Samuel, to me, in my own heart, would qualify. That's up to somebody to put them on the wall. I know it's 22 too many. I went to their website. They have a couple hundred people that have been listed as heroes. They call them. The information. It'll be similar to that, but more in depth. More in depth in a way that everybody can kind of interact with that posting. So, one, it's to honor the memory and history of our dead, but two, to make a connection. So maybe there can be some comments back and forth. Family members can meet members of those that might have served with the loved one that's posted. Third, data gathering. And I know everybody's like, well, data, you know, like it's private. We kind of want an open source. I'm hoping that this will help us as a community dealing with suicide, but also medical community, that we can kind of maybe see indicators, maybe see common threads. I hate to be a spotlight to say like, okay, suicide, for example. It's in our community, it's in our society, prevalent right now. Yes, the military has a higher incident of suicide, so it kind of puts a spotlight on it, and it's difficult for even me to say it, but as a veteran, I'm preconditioned to this particular problem, and just be honest about it. But even as a whole for military, we have other spikes too. We have higher spike in cancer. We have higher spike in getting in trouble with the law. I mean, as a percentage. And I sometimes think, well, is that because of the nature of us that join the military, or is that something that the military, you know, it's part of the leftover of training in the military, because what they ask us to do, so it makes us that more susceptible to these issues. And then fourthly, for the website is obviously to provide some information on suicide awareness and how that operates. And to me, it's my only way of it's my way of addressing the issue. You have your way of addressing the issue. Front line, back line, sidelines. If everybody can pitch in, that's what we're asking. I think a lot of the time, I, I am foreseeing and I'm planning in the future if we get donations to this website is to part of the proceeds go to this project. The project is supported by Smart Vets Helping Vets, but it's a standalone website to honor these guys. What's your thoughts on this project that I'm working on? I mean,
We've talked about this a little bit before, and I think it's a great idea. And one of the things I want to focus on is the connecting part. So the families, these families do really well connecting, and they become, they're in a club, they're in a group that they don't want to be in, but they connect really well. And last year in Colorado, I delivered a bench, and it was really a difficult delivery. And they all are, but this one was really difficult. The mom was just like, she was shaking. And one of the other moms came with me, and she's the one that presented the bench. That was so much better. For two women to sit there and hold each other, crying, it was hard to view, but it was also beautiful. So when these families get together, they go to taps, they go to those kind of meetings, but when they get together and they do things together, it's a way to heal. It's a way to move forward. There's losses. I say it over and over again. These losses are tremendous. Sometimes it's an only child, it's an only son. And a lot of times they're young, 21, 22 years old. So. But if you do something to help the families and to also raise awareness, that's important and that's valuable, because this is a monumental problem. If I went at this like I needed to build 400 benches to go deliver them tomorrow, where would I be? We need to deliver one at a time, go visit a family, show them loving kindness, talk with them, sit with them, listen to their stories, pray with them. It means the world. So like say, God has transitioned my mission, and he's done it really well to where I can be effective with the skills he's given me. The driving thing is ridiculous sometimes, but that's something that I've been gifted to be able to do. Big minds. But it's so important to stay focused on what your mission is. I'm not racking up miles to break a record. I'm racking up miles to go visit families. And that's the most important thing.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it was a good meeting. Good video, hopefully. I'd like to also thank Calvary Chapel of Sonora. We're sitting on their campus. It's a beautiful day out today. May 8th, 2023. You're getting ready to head out on the road here pretty soon?
As soon as possible. It could be later on this week or next week. But Houston, Texas, it's a 2,000-mile run. So I got to do that in a week because I need to be back here obviously for Memorial Day. We got some plans.
Yeah.
I have plans here at the church too to put up 500 or 600 flags on our lawn.
Oh, nice.
And then what we're going to do at Carter Cemetery. I think a lot about. We definitely have to honor our fallen. We have to honor veterans that we've lost, and then we also have to deal with this suicide issue. Because I don't know when they created Memorial Day, right? A long time ago.
Yeah.
But this wasn't probably in the sights, what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And it does need to be addressed, as long as we can do it respectfully, and still honor all of our lost. Because you know the deal. I mean, I'm a civilian. I'm grateful and thankful that our military has always protected me. And that's important.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll do it again without procrastinating too much.
Oh yeah. All right.